Welcome team. So good. Okay. Who we are. We're Buckeyes for Accessibility. B4A. Welcome, welcome. We're a group of disabled students, faculty, staff, alumni, university friends, and allies with an array of backgrounds who value accessibility, inclusion, and supporting one another. We're also really old. We need to do another B4A history event. But we were like raising chaos and crimes in the 60s. So like we have been here around a hot minute. What does it mean to have a disability, and why is there a star next to the 4? Let's continue. In a legal sense, having a disability is having a condition that limits one or more major life activities or bodily functions. In more of a medical perspective, having a disability is having a condition that affects how we perform and participate in our daily activities. Your health sciences major, you'll know about ADLs. It's basically that. But disability is much more broad and expansive than like the legal and the medical perspectives. I think that socially is like a really important one, is important for our community, which is existing outside of cultural norms with unequal access to environments not built for us, is kind of what we like to think of disability as. And that can be not equal access in a physical sense or in like a mental, cognitive, mental health kind of way, you're not having equal access to the environments. As a cultural identity, getting ahead of myself. It's a human variation, experiencing or navigating life in a way that's different. Human variation, experiencing or navigating life in a way that falls on a diverse community spectrum outside of their cultural default, outside of like the able-bodied cultural default. So who's in the disability community? That's a good question. People with mental health issues, chronic health / spoonies. If you don't know what spoonie is, get excited. You'll learn about it soon. People who are neurodiverse, people that have physical or mobility disabilities, people that are blind, low vision, or visually impaired, people who are deaf or hard of hearing, and people that are still trying to figure it out. We have a lot of members that start in that still trying to figure it out community. And then we sort of help them and navigate the terrible US health system. And sometimes they're able to figure it out some more. Okay, here's a fun fact. Language is constantly evolving. I don't know if you knew this, but language is constantly evolving, which means that disability language and language around disability is also constantly evolving. So not all members of the disability community agree on the same language. It's always a good idea to ask someone's preferred language. There's two main types. There's person first language, where you would say people with disabilities, or like Jacob has Down syndrome. Jacob is a person with Down syndrome. It puts the human being before anything else. It's a safe choice. And then there's identity first, which is like disabled person. So like,
would you like an example?
did you like how it just froze? I was gonna go with I'm autistic Jess, but that's not how English language works.
Autistic person.
I'm an autistic person. There, thank you, Saran. I'm an autistic person, or I'm a wheelchair user named Caden. It puts pride in the identity and reinforces that disabilities are nothing to be ashamed of. Like, I'm a dyslexic. I'm not a person with dyslexia. I mean, I am a person with dyslexia, but predominantly, if you can't tell from my ability to present the slideshow, I'm a dyslexic. Movements such as crip culture movement are reclaiming words like crip in a similar fashion to the way that the LGBTQ community is reclaiming the word queer, or has reclaimed the word queer. So that's like a kind of, you got to be in the right circle to kind of say that word still, like crip or cripple, if we want to be like real bold and off-putting to the able bodies. But it's definitely a word that like is being reclaimed, since it's a word you may hear some of like the officers remember saying. Here's a cool hint. If you don't know what's cool to say and what's not cool to say, you should just ask someone. Just like if you don't know someone's pronouns or their name, or like how you originally met them, as I had to do today, you just ask. But here are some things that you shouldn't say. Handicapped, purge that from your vocabulary. Impaired, unless we're going with like impaired vision, but besides that, not impaired. Handy capable. I don't know what like special ed nonsense that came up with the word handy capable, but it's terrible. Special / special needs. I did have a professor call me a special snowflake this week, so that was exciting. Differently able is another one, like you are differently abled, but that's like really framing disability as in like the word disabled is a dirty word, and the word disabled is not a dirty word, and disability is not a dirty word. Being disabled is not a bad thing. And so like, it's important to use that language, and then you're not invalid. And just because you don't have like a piece of paper that says your disability on it, signed by a little doctor, doesn't mean that you're not valid or that like your disability isn't real. Why you deserve so much more. We have the right to accommodations. Law. That's just law. Can't argue with that. I mean, you could, but we shouldn't. We deserve a community. Disabled people deserve a community. And we deserve to view being disabled as something to be proud of. It's a cultural identity. Because we are a culture, we have our own history, we have our own like languages. And it's something that's really beautiful and something I'm really passionate about. Okay. So that's a brief spark notes on what disability is and that you should be really proud that you're disabled and like rock it. Now, this I'm going to go through kind of quickly, but it is going to be posted on the website, which you have a link to at the beginning of it. And also you can find through the doobly doobs. But this is just going to give us a quick run through of SLDS and the accommodations SLDS offers on campus. Thank you, Saran. Fabulous. So this is a quick run through of accommodations in case you don't have accommodations or you didn't realize that something you need could be accommodation. Just a quick little refresher for everyone. Defining accommodations, modifications to space and course curriculum which allow people with disabilities to equitably access and complete their education. That is what this is. So like if you're blind, we don't give you your books with written text. We provide them in an audio format or braille because you like can't read the book. Same concept applies to like everything. Accommodations are not just for like people with obvious disabilities or like disabilities that the public school system recognized. We're better than that now. Come on, kids. Here are some categories of accommodations. We have exam and testing, one of my favorites. American Sign Language, which we're now also do a lot of CART at OSU, but I'll get into that. Assistive technology and classroom focused and lab focused accommodations. Exam accommodations. You can have a couple of exam accommodations. You can have extended time, time and a half, double time, triple time, all the fabulous kinds. Reduce distraction testing environments. I don't believe that these are real at OSU. I know that they are real. I understand that the cubicles they put you in SLDS are in theory a distraction reduced testing environment. I don't believe that, but on paper, I'm required to say that those are distraction reduced testing environments. Then there's readers and scribes available to do your reading and your scribing. So if you like broke both of your arms, you can have a gremlin do such things. Or like when I took my SATs, I had a reader who read them to me because SAT couldn't for the life of them figure out how to put it in a PDF that I could like make the computer read the words. So sometimes you can have a reader. It's cool times. Exam accommodations. Earplugs are available at SLDS, which is wonderful because as I pointed out previously, the weird cubicles that they put you in are not distraction reduced. You can have food and beverages allowed. I actually don't know if that's like a special SLDS accommodation. Like if you have to especially get that or if you can just like have them and they don't care. Because I definitely don't have that accommodation and definitely bring in snacks and they don't care. And then you can have like built-in restroom and mental health breaks. Like you're like taking a timed exam. You can like have moments, which is really nice, particularly if you have like triple time. So you're taking a 3-hour exam that's now all of a sudden 9 hours. It's really nice to like have some breaks to like eat a lunch. ASL accommodations. Communication access real-time translation called CART. It's like magic captions. It's like a magic human sits there and they like magic caption it. Live caption. It's really cool. I've never been in a class with CART, but I've been at events with CART, and I'm always like absolutely and utterly blown away by the magic of it all. You could also have interpreting and transcribing services. OSU like has full-time interpreters that just interpret for classes all the time. So if you need that, you should, give them some work to do. Because if not, they just sit around at SLDS and gossip. I know this for a fact. And so I like to see when they're busy. Assistive technology accommodations, text to speech, speech to text. 2 different things going different directions, but same thing, kind of. Different, but the same, just different directions. Screen readers. You can also just like really get your laptop to do this all by itself. You don't like need an SLDS. Well, you need SLDS accommodation so that your professors don't upload blurry photos of books from the 18th century upside down because your screen readers can't read that. So you can get accommodations so that your computer can act as a screen reader, which forces your professor to behave. You can also have text magnification. I don't think we have the big magnifying robots on campus anymore, but we might. But you can also like do other magnifying magic, I would assume. Assistive technology, we continue. Braille and tactile graphs, which are really cool. PDF versions in large print, also really cool. PDF allows like you to use like a screen reader that's built into your laptop, like a normal Mac, to like read it magically. Captions and audio descriptions, and then audiobooks. Read by beautiful robots that sound like space aliens. Lab accommodations and class accommodations. You can have access to instructors' notes beforehand. You can also have access to slides ahead of time. Or if your professor is typing on a purple Google Doc with orange text, you can have that ahead of time. You can record classroom audio and you can request a note taker. So those are all class lab things. Other class lab things. You can have a lab assistant. My partner is a wheelchair user. He's not tall enough to get up to cadaverine bodies. He's an OT school at OSU. So like, you got to lower the table and you got to have a gremlin. Mostly his gremlin lab assistant told him that he couldn't roll his wheelchair while holding scalpels in between his knuckles. Because you can walk and hold a scalpel at the same time. You cannot wheel and hold a scalpel at the same time, which was very confusing to him. And it was a reoccurring issue that he was stabbing other children. You may use digital lab notebooks. I know nothing about how those work because I refuse to take classes that would require me to have a lab notebook, but I do know they exist. And you can have an intermittent flex plan or an ADM, an extension deadline modification. Another one that is super complicated and strange and weird and like it's just the system makes it complicated, but it's not complicated, but it is complicated. It's a lot. It's great. People who use it love it, I think. Can you tell that that's one that I don't have, so I can't speak adequately on it?
I can give the quick SparkNotes summary.
Go, Saran.
Yeah, so ADMs actually, if I remember correctly, I think it's like a category of attendance deadline modifications. So if you have a flare-up, it's so that way you can have a documented reason as to why you might not be able to attend a class for class credit or might need to get an exam postponed because of that flare-up. Also as deadline modifications. So again, in the case of a flare-up, if you have something that is due, then you can get an extension on that. Intermittent flex plans are for people who know that they have intermittent flare-ups, so flare-ups that happen every now and then. That's, for instance, what I have. They also have versions for short-term. And I think there was a third one, but I'm forgetting what it is at the moment.
There's a lot.
Yeah. Again, if you're confused, feel free to ask questions after this presentation and go ahead and look on SLDS's website. SLDS also has some like Q&A sessions this week. But they're very helpful if you're someone like me who tends to get flare-ups that I can't really predict. So I will have these sent out to my teachers, and then my teachers and I can work together at the beginning of the year before a flare-up might occur to kind of make a plan as to what we will do in case a flare-up occurs, how I might need to ask for an extension on a deadline, on an assignment or an exam, and how to deal with things like participation. And that kind of gets it all on paper, or rather on email, but in writing that we all can go back and refer to from the beginning to make that process of asking for that accommodation far easier.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Ron. I like to think of the two, like there's 3 versions of intermittent flex plans, but there's 2 versions. You get a surprise ocular migraine and you've never had one before, and all of a sudden you can't think or see, and you get ocular migraine, so you plan ahead of time with your professors that there may be times where you cannot think or see. And you do that. I really need to, because I don't have ocular migraines, but I have normal migraines and also like 7 other issues, need intermittent flex plans, but I keep forgetting to email my access specialist. It's been 2 years. Moving on. Miscellaneous, temporary accommodations. If you shatter your ankle, for example, you may need like additional like leniency with getting to class on time and stuff. So that's like a temporary accommodation for like a approved illness or recovery. And then OSU has this whole separate cult called COVID accommodations that I don't like. We're in COVID, but we're not in COVID, and I don't know how up to date our COVID accommodations are, but they're mostly like, you don't get penalized for not going to class when you have COVID because you have COVID and we don't want you to spread COVID. Kabish kabosh. Other miscellaneous ones. Housing is a fun one. You can have single or accessible rooms, like if you can't do roommates or like you have a service dog. Or if you need like a wheelchair accessible room, they have those. You can also, this is a fun one that I feel like not a lot of people know, is that you can have air conditioning be a medical requirement for you. It's not all campus housing buildings have air conditioning. And so you can make that be a medical requirement so that they have to put you in housing that has air conditioning. And then also like they can't kick out a service animal or an ESA so that you can have those in your housing. Obtaining accommodations. This gets really nitty gritty. But basically you go to SLDS's website, which is on the screen and like is Googleable. And then you go to the how to register section at the top of the page. Then you choose the application type that most is relevant to your access needs / like your situation. And then you supply the documentation that the form requires. Fun fact about documentation. Proof of diagnosis or prior accommodations, use or approval. It's not necessary in case of visible disabilities. So like if you have a wheelchair, you just immediately get paratransit. You don't have to like prove that you can't walk or that you need paratransit. It just like does it. You often do not need like new or direct evidence for specific or additional accommodations. Or also like if you want to change, like I had accommodations in high school, but I like changed my accommodations between high school when I came to OSU on the phone with my access specialist because they were like asking questions about how my accommodations worked in high school, which they worked very poorly. And so SLDS was able to like look at my documentation and also just like talk to me and understand like what will make college most accessible for me. They're pretty chill. Like SLDS gives out double time, which like entire universities refuse on a complete basis to do for like exam accommodations. So they're pretty great. Using accommodations. At the start of your semester, you have to remember to go into your AIM portal, which is your accommodation information magic portal. And you have to like fill out a little duplicate doll. It's not that hard, even my ADHD brain can do it. And then it automatically sends out course accessibility letters to your professors on their behalf. And sometimes that's like all that happens. Sometimes your instructors will send you a follow-up. If you have like an intermittent flex plan, it's important to make sure that your professors do send a follow-up. And that you're in conversation with them. Some of my professors, like they just like need to know to like give me double time in their magic system, so they don't email me back. But sometimes they do email me back. They're like, got it. But it really depends on your situation. But ensure professors have a completed flex plan if you have one and have a shared copy with you, because documentation, especially with like flex plans and extension modification deadlines. You just have to like have everything really well documented in the beginning so that then when you're dying, you can have space to run and die. Using your accommodations. When experiencing flare-ups, communicate that to your professor. You really should do that. But you don't need to share like details of your flare-ups if you're uncomfortable doing so. I just like to tell them I have a migraine, even if I don't, but it's because it's just easy and they understand what migraines mean. But you can also use like flare-up. Professors are getting pretty good with like understanding what that means. For missed deadlines, you might have to prove an estimate of how much additional time you'll need. You cannot, most professors will propose a new deadline. But the nice ones tend to be chill. If you have any problems such as unaccommodating and or unresponsive professors, contact your access specialist. We should all now have access specialists. Oh, there is also, if you pre-written emails, you can just edit like 3 words in send. That's what I do. Oh, pre-write your emails and then like switch a couple words and then send.
No, like when I got the emails about my intermittent flex plan, they included a link to like email templates.
Oh.
And so I just copy university-made email templates that say like, I'm having an unexpected flare-up of my illness. I will not be able to do assignment by day, period. And
I would
then,
also, oh, sorry.
spaces. That's it.
I would also like to point out that SLDS's definition of flare-up is a lot more broad than I've heard some medical professionals refer to it as. Like the examples of disabilities that they give for the intermittent flex plan, I'm looking at their website right now, are Crohn's disease, migraines, generalized anxiety disorder, PTSD, recurring out-of-town medical appointments. So and those are just examples. Now, the list of things that would count are way broader than that. But to give you an idea of the fact that they use a much broader form of the word flare up than I've heard some medical professionals use. So you may qualify for an intermittent flex plan, even if from the word flare up, you might not think that you do.
I took a medication that was a sedative my freshman year, which meant I would sometimes go to sleep and not wake up for 24 hours, which was really fun. And I really needed an intermittent flex plan, but I just kept forgetting to do one. And also it was freshman. I didn't know how to do things back then. So my professors just got really used to receiving emails from me saying, hello, I tried to do school, but then I slept for 24 hours and I forgot to attend your class and do the homework. So sorry. And they got used to that. But it's better to have it all in paper because like sometimes you won't have chill, wonderful professors. If you want information about like getting access specialists, you can visit the Our Staff section located under the About Us tab on the homepage of SLDS's website. Oh, here's a fun thing. This was fun. I got to make this today. Everyone is a little different. So the same disability does not equal the same accommodation, and the same accommodation does not equal the same disability. So like I'm Julia. You'll learn about my disabilities momentarily. I have extended time, ×2. I have access to lecture slides in advance. All of my readings have to be PDF with copyable text so that I can get my screen reader to play it. And I can take all of my notes on computers, even in classes that don't allow computers. Pretty cool. Saran and Jason, I'm going to talk for you. So get ready. Saran has extended time in space exams. So Saran like it only takes an exam a day, which seems like it should just be a rule generally. Access to lecture slides in advance, breaks, and then has an intermittent flex plan. And then Jason, another one of our leaders, has extension deadline modification, which is intermittent flex plan is under extension attendance deadline modification. It has those. And also uses paratransit. It's a little bit complicated, but I did my best. I hope you appreciate it. Okay, time for the guided discussion and vibes. So the recording is going to end